So my name is Harris Williams. I am the former Boston College football team captain. I am a computer science professor at Boston College and Bunker Hill Community College, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Greater Than Technology. So the next question that you might be thinking of when as you're sitting across at your computer here thinking, well, why are we even here? Why are we talking about this? And then I see this thing, football fields to quantum realms. How do those two things connect? How do you get from football fields to quantum realms? And how do you go from football fields to being a tech CEO or even being a computer science professor? What I'm going to do today is we're going to just chat about my journey, but more specifically, after the short discussion about my journey and how that even happens, we're going to then discuss what's next for your futures and what you should be preparing for as you progress along, and how quantum even relates to football. So as I'm going through this, I'm going to be shooting you questions in the using the polls, and I wish we could be a little bit more communicative, but just the medium how we're talking here, it's going to be a little bit difficult for us, but I'm going to make sure we try to keep this as interactive as possible. So let's start from the beginning. So all of you roughly are in high school, and that's where I started programming as well. Unfortunately, at my high school, we didn't have any computer science, but what we did have was something along the lines of like Photoshop and the Photoshop and being able to build art on a computer. Now, one thing before I continue, I see there's several questions in the polls or in the QA. I definitely will follow up with them at the end. Just when you say that, did I meet Zay Flowers? Zay Flowers was a couple years or several years after me. But I'll tell you about all the NFL players I played against and with, and we'll definitely go into that as well. So it started in high school. I know that a lot of you guys are playing video games, and I was playing video games just as well. And at the time, I was playing Call of Duty. And I said to myself, hey, I'm playing all these games. Why don't I try actually creating one myself? And so if you've ever heard of this thing called ActionScript Flash, if you ever played an online video game, that was like the framework that you would use to develop an online game. And I said, hey, this ActionScript Flash, it's the same stuff I'm learning in class for Adobe, the Adobe Photoshop. It's just this like other application that Adobe had. And in class, we really didn't focus on the ActionScript side. And I said, hey, there's some code here. Let me try it out. Let me make a video game because I'm always playing them. And so then the next thing I did was I said, okay, let's start building it. So I was my junior year, and from junior year all the way to senior year, I spent my time building out this video game. And guess what? By the time I graduated, the whole language, everything I learned was obsolete. And the reason why that is because by the time I graduated, this thing called the iPhone came out. And if you ever heard of this individual, Steve Jobs, he was the CEO of Apple at the time, he said, hey, this language, the language that I had just learned and taught myself, is not going to be allowed on the Apple device. And because of that, the whole industry shifted towards JavaScript. And I at the time, everything I had learned had just completely been wiped away. So what do you think? What do you think I did next? I'm going to throw this in a poll right now. What do you think I did next? I'm going to put this right here. So in the poll right now, I have a question. What do you think I did next now that the programming language was gone? Awesome. So several of you, a lot of you think that I just went and learned another language or shift my focus to other skills. And several of you think that thought I cried. Okay. So I at this stage, I didn't cry. There's some other things that I did cry, and you'll see next. But the what I did do from this is I said, okay, maybe programming isn't for me. So I from that point, I didn't even think I was going to be a developer or anything related to programming. And so at that point, I said, maybe programming isn't for me. Maybe I should just go on to college. I never even really thought, I wanted to be a programmer. It was more just a side hobby because I'm just learning. I wanted to learn how to create a video game. But one thing that really should I'm going to leave you with today is there's principles throughout life. And so this principle is that when you're learning anything, I didn't recognize that when you learn a programming language, you learn principles. You're not so much learning like the actual syntax, but you learn principles that you can then take along to another programming language. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we just keep discussing this journey. But what I didn't realize was, oh man, I thought since I can't use that anymore, I'm no longer good at this, or I have no more value at this programming thing. So fast forward, I go on to college, and let me just make sure we'll go on to college, recognizing that change is inevitable, because I didn't recognize that, the programming languages could just be blown away like that. And I go on to college, and I'm thinking to myself, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to work on the brain, be a neurologist. And so that was the whole goal, but like even before I started trying to program. So programming was just a side hobby. But guess what? Life had other plans. So what ended up happening here was, as I failed my way completely out of being a doctor in a pre-med program. If you saw my transcript when I was a sophomore, you'd see a C, a D, an F, and then there's one A. And so I failed my way out because, one, I have a learning difference, dyslexia, and it makes it incredibly hard to understand and go through like a class such as chemistry. But on another aspect of things, it was more of something that was put in my backpack, or a dream that was put in backpack by my parents and by the society around me. Hey, be a doctor. And I didn't really think about like, hey, there could be another path for me. And so remember, I said there was several C's, a D, an F, and then there's one A. And that one A was in computer science. And I said to myself, maybe there's something here for me. And as growing up with a learning difference, like with dyslexia, I've always you always think, hey, you're not really meant for academics. So I'm at Boston College. I'm playing football, so I'm a football player. And then foremost, I thought, I'm going to play football. I'm going to go to the NFL. And I never really thought to myself, this academic stuff is really for me, because just naturally, I just never really fit in the classroom. Maybe you feel that way. Maybe you don't. So I get this A in computer science, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should keep trying. And from there, I recognize one thing you recognize here is that failure isn't necessarily a bad thing. That failure of me not being able to succeed at trying to be a doctor was really just a course correction. Just like if you're traveling to a new destination in your car, and you're going from one point to the another point, and then there's like a detour in the road for traffic. Well, that's just a course correction. You're ultimately going to get to your final destination, but the path that you get there, the path that you take, might have to change, which is completely fine. So the next thing that happened here was I continued to go into computer science. Guess what? The first time I walked into the first computer science class in college, the professor looked at me and said, "Are you sure you're in the right class?" Keep in mind, I'm 6'4", 325 pounds at the time, and I did not look like I fit into a computer science class. And so, I said to the professor, I said, "Yes, sir, I am." And the only reason why I was so confident in being able to say that I fit in is because It's about what you bring into the situation is what you get out. So what you bring inside here between your ears is what you get out of the situation. Not so much of what's happening outside of you, but more of the attitude, the mindset, and the determination that you bring into it. So naturally, that first programming class was not in ActionScript, the language that I taught myself in high school. It was in the programming language called Java, something I've never learned before. But remember how we talked about this earlier, the principles of life. There's principles, and the principle I learned from taking from ActionScript onto my first programming language allowed me to open the door to some amazing things and to be able to change how I think about learning. So, and being able to do so well in my first class. So let's fast forward a little bit. Now it's my senior year of college. And another principle I want to make sure you impart upon you is that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So my senior year of college, remember, I'm playing football, Division I athlete. The year before that, we just broke the single season rushing record in the entire nation. Our running back was a Heisman Trophy finalist. I played offensive guard. We broke the record for how much you could run the ball on the ground. And so as an offensive lineman, that's huge. My position, for those of you who don't play football, that my position is the one that protects the quarterback or opens up the holes for the running back. And so I was prepared to go to the NFL. The scouts were there because we did so well the year before. I was ready. Like I was on the draft track, if you understand what I mean. Like I was ready to go. I was a team captain. So this is my senior year, team captain. Remember, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So all the work and hard work that I had put into the football field, I was also doing that in the classroom with computer science. So by that time period, I was also pretty good at CS as well. So fast forward, this is our first game of the year. We're playing, you guys have heard of the Patriots, right? So we're playing at Gillette Stadium, and we're playing at Gillette Stadium. We're playing against UMass. It's the sixth play of the first game. And the sixth play of the first game, I break my leg and I dislocate my ankle all in one play. Now, quick question. How many of you think that hurt? I just threw it in a poll, so I want to see. What do you guys think? I don't know. Let me try it out. So yes, the I highly do not recommend any of you trying out breaking your leg and dislocating your ankle all in one action. It actually hurt a bunch. And so now keep in mind, I am a team captain right now. So I'm a team captain and I'm out for the season. And this is the first game of the year. And this is my final season ready to go on to the NFL. So what am I going to do? Like, what would you do if you were in this position? So here's another question. Yeah. So we have a season-ending injury. What would you do? It's in the poll. So what would you do? Season-ending injury, you're out for the year. Whoops. Season-ending injury, you're out for the year. What would you do? Work out and recover is the popular answer here. So, as a team captain, the first thing I did was I definitely had to cry because it just hurt so much. And keep in mind, when you injure yourself like that, you kind of have to sit on the sidelines for the rest of the game. And so that injury hurt just with your leg up and just in ice. Workout recovery, that's definitely natural. One thing I didn't put on here was the idea of quit. I'll be honest with you. That was one of the thoughts that went through my mind. But it's okay to have thoughts like that. It's only about acting upon them. So just because you have a thought, not necessarily a bad thing. And what ended up happening was I recognized, okay, yes, I can quit, but I can't quit on my teammates. I already made a commitment to them. And this was my 5th year playing, so I could not quit on my teammates. And so working out recovery, if I'm not quitting on my teammates, then I'm going to have to work out and recover. But one thing that didn't show up here, only one vote here, was work on helping my teammates. That was the thing I did. I said to myself, hey, if I physically can't help them, I have to do something that I can mentally help them with. So remember that principle. The way you do one thing is how you do everything. So that principle, I said, okay, I'm doing pretty well at computer science because, hey, I'm a possible future NFL football player. That means I'm pretty good at CS because of how much work and time I've been dedicating. So that passion that I had for football, I've been also putting into the classroom. And so at the time, keep in mind, this is 2015. So this is several years before GPT. At the time, there's this thing called AI, which we've probably all heard about. And I said to myself, hey, what happens if I take AI and I have AI learn the football playbook just like a player would? So now the X's and O's aren't stationary. They can now move in real time like an actual player. And then the player can take control of the figure and then control it like a video game. So what I did was I said, okay, let's do that. Let me make an application that uses AI and then simulates the football playbook, and then a player can take control of it, move their figure around, and then on top of that, the system can analyze what they're doing, give them a grade, and then send that back to the coaches. So that's what I did. And so just a couple years from that, we were then featured on ESPN because I was able to create this application in my dorm room while I'm working out and recovering. And then we were able to improve and help the team win. So let me show you what happened. Let me show you this video that where we are featured on ESPN. So let me turn off this highlight here.
College football on ABC, presented by Kate Jewelers, is brought to you by Nissan. Innovation that excites. And
that's me, by the way.
Experience the
and this is during a game, and this is the application.
Mental Rep is a software program helping football teams win by making the game virtual. We simulate the X's and O's you find in a standard football playbook on a desktop or mobile device. We enable athletes to practice in a safe, virtual environment by giving them complete control of their figure while everything else moves around them. After each rep, the software gives them real-time coaching feedback like a coach in their pocket. This information is then sent back to the actual coaches so they know where to focus at practice the next day.
Reggie Gillespie with a first down carry for NC State, spins all the way out to about the...
So the moment that was aired on ESPN, within 5 seconds of that being aired, over 20,000 people went to our website and tried to create an account. And then from there, after the 6th second, the entire website crashed. So what do you think I did next after that? Oh, I don't actually have a QA for this. Whoops. So I don't have a QA for this, but most of the time when I asked, what do you think I did next? Most people would say, I improved the servers. I either cried, I quit, gave the servers more RAM, I improved the code. And I'll answer. The first thing I did was I cried. I went to my mom's shoulder and I cried. Then you might be saying, why did I go cry? I'm a Division I athlete. You just created this great thing. And then, yes, obviously the system crashed. But the reason why I cry is because you have to first accept the problems that you have. You have a problem, a situation in your life, and you have to accept that there's a problem so that you can then go and improve and fix it. So then once I've accepted that there's a problem, I call it version 1, and then I start working on version 2. And then from there, we were able to expand the application to be used across the world, from Jamaica, the UK, to Japan, throughout the NFL. And so I didn't even know they played football all across the world. But then I also, when we went to it being used in the NFL, what I really didn't know was how many NFL teams have hidden employees. I don't know the better term to say it. They have hidden employees. They're mathematicians, computer scientists, psychologists, biologists. And it's not just football. It's the NFL. It's the NBA. It's definitely a lot more in soccer across in Europe as well. And these individuals are working on all the things around sports that make a sports team have a competitive advantage. Particularly if you, at the time, the Patriots definitely had a group of about 12 individuals that were dedicated for computer science and making sure that this everything that they were doing was statistically sound in terms of the next play that they would be calling and everything. And what we found was when we used the application at the college level, they didn't use it for training. They were using it to simulate new plays. So from there, what I would love for you to take away from this is that computer programming isn't necessarily just a thing that you do as like a nerd, or is it just a thing that you do just to write code or make video games, but it's a tool that you can use to augment your own passions. Remember, my passion was playing football, but then I realized, hey, I can augment this, help out my teammates, and then build upon that. And the key here is life is in the doing, because recognizing that, remember, the failure, it's okay to fail, because without that failure, with us scaling on ESPN, without that failure, we wouldn't have recognized that we have to make our servers better. We have to improve. Just like when you go to if you're an athlete, or you're an artist, or you're a performance artist, every time, every iteration, every time you draw something, or you paint a new painting, or you're on the stage and you mess up your lines, or you're in the rink and you're on the ice, or you're on the track and you make a mistake, it's okay. But so long as you're learning and you're improving from that, you can get better. So now, how do I go shift from this to quantum? Like, what is this big shift? So from there, we ultimately had to shut down the application because it was getting so big, but I just didn't have the business acumen to be able to combine it all and put it all together. And I learned from that, because recognizing I'm just a young 20-something, not really recognizing how to put it all together. So fast forward a little bit, now I'm a computer science professor, and I started to realize that my students don't have the tools they need to start to program. And so I said to myself, hey, let's build something. Let's build a virtual system. And that's where the company I've created now, Greater Than, has come about. And then recognizing that in your future, the regular computers that you're using right now aren't going to be the computers of the future. The computers of the future are going to be entirely different, and making sure that you're prepared for that is critical. So what I'm going to do is spend the last 5 minutes here just to explain to you the future of what computing is going to look like. So how many of you have ever heard of a quantum computer? And let me put this inside the chat as a poll. How many of you heard of a quantum computer? Heard of a quantum computer? Never heard of a quantum computer? So no, there's a lot of no's. Perfectly fine. So let's discuss what a quantum computer is, and then hopefully we can open it up to some questions. So we understand how a computer works. A regular computer works with ones and zeros, and you can use those ones and zeros, sequence them into information. So you can think of like a 1 and 0, kind of like this coin right here. You have a heads, and then you have a tails. Now with a quantum computer, what's fundamentally different here is you have a heads and a tails, and then a maybe. A maybe is where the quantum computer is in both states at the same time. So if I flip this coin up in the air, when it's in the air, is it heads or tails? So when it's in the air, is it heads or tails? And so when it's in the air, as you all can see, when it's in the air, it's actually both. Yes. So that's how a quantum computer works. It now can see two different options. Just unlike our regular computers, what we call them now is our classical computers, the one that you're looking at right now, that's called a classical computer. It can only see 1 or 0, where a quantum computer can now see 1, 0 at the same time. Now, think about it like this. Your computer can work with 64 bits of information. So if we had a quantum computer that works with 2 bits of information, think about how many possibilities it can see. It can see 2 coins that are flipping in the air. That means there's 4 different possibilities: heads, 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 tails, tails, heads, and then tails, tails. So what does that really mean? Well, what that really means here is now a quantum computer can see 4 different things all at the same time. Now, here's what's going to blow your mind. Our regular computers, a computer that you're using right now, can see 64 bits, or your regular computer has 64 bits of information. Every single time your CPU cycles, there's 64 bits of information that's being computed. So when a quantum computer has 64 of those bits, or 64 of these coins flipping in the air, guess how many possibilities that is? 18 quintillion. So now you have this computer that can see 18 quintillion different possibilities, individual worlds all at the same time. If you ever saw or seen the movie Ant-Man and Quantumania, and he's like down in the quantum realm and there's like millions of them being created every single time, it's very similar to that. So we have when a quantum computer works with 64 bits of information, it can see 18 quintillion different possibilities. And then it can then extract that information from all of those different possibilities. One really interesting thing about this now that really makes them even faster, and like this is even further blow your mind, is that with a quantum computer, all I need to do when I'm calculating this information, all I need to do is just look at one of the coins, one coin, and to see one value of the coin, and then I automatically know the value of all the rest of the coins. And the reason why that is because of this phenomenon called entanglement. And this is a completely new phenomenon, or I shouldn't say completely new. It's been around for hundreds of years, but it's only been proven back in 2023, the Nobel Prize. And this phenomenon shows that you can take these any of these 2 qubits, and all you need to do is just look at one of them, and you instantaneously know the result of the other one. What that means is information has just traveled faster than the speed of light. And one really cool thing is, imagine you have these 2 coins, you're flipping them in the air, you take one of the coins that's flipping, and you put it all the way across the galaxy, and then you look at yours with the other ones across the galaxy, you instantaneously know the value of the other. So this now means that if you've ever seen Star Wars or Star Trek and they're transmitting information across the galaxies, it works exactly that same way. And quantum computers are real and are a thing. And I recognize that I'm running out of time here, but I should let you know like how they are being used to change the world already. So when you're going into your next cybersecurity class, or you're learning about cybersecurity and encryption, such as RES or AES encryption, what you should recognize here is on the whiteboard, quantum computers have already broken all those encryptions. Like the stuff that we find the most secure today has already been broken. The reason why we haven't changed, or we haven't full scale shifted just yet, is the quantum computers, the actual hardware hasn't caught up to the software of it. So you can write software, you can make it up on the whiteboard, but the hardware hasn't caught up yet. But the day that it does, there's going to be a lot of massive shifts. And for all of you, when you're graduating college, this is definitely going to be your future. This is you're going to be seeing in your future. And so that's what a lot of what we do at Greater Than is providing quantum computers for high schools and colleges and being able to have students access this information. That's why I bring it up. Now I'm going to take this last minute to go through the Q&A. I recognize that I have gone over my time just a little bit, but I'm going to see what we have here. So I meet Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers graduated, but he was several years after me. The players that I played against and played with for in the NFL, if you know Deshaun Watson or the former quarterback for the Saints, there's actually a lot of NFL players that I played with and still know. But Zay Flowers just after my time. Did you get carried off the field? No, I actually limped off the field. I mean, there was somebody like one of the trainers holding me up. Did you think that you'd get the injury? You'd get injured? Would you have stayed playing football longer? So that was, if you want to ask this question, so there's actually 3 season-ending injuries throughout my entire career. That one, I would have kept playing football longer if I have a little bit more time. I see you all are leaving. I really appreciate your time, but I will stay here if you're going to stay here to answer. I would have stayed playing football longer, but I took one MBA class at my college, or Boston College. I got my MBA while I was there, and I realized that when I was looking at Apple's profit and loss statement in class, I realized that Apple makes more than an NFL team when they're just selling iPhone cases. And I said to myself, hold on. There's something way bigger than NFL out there, and there's like starting a business, and actually you can make a lot bigger difference. So when I was looking at that, when I was in class, just looking at how Apple makes more money than NFL does, just selling the cases to their iPhones, not their iPhones themselves, not the computers, because that's even way bigger than NFL. It's just the cell phone cases. So then I thought it shifted my mind to perspective. So that's where a lot of it shifted towards creating a company out of that software, Mental Rep, that I created in the dorm room. How do you go to the NFL? What are recruiters looking for? Recruiters are looking for, well, one, you have to be athletic, but two, you have to make sure that you are the whole package. Unless you're like amazing at that one craft, you have to make sure you're the whole package, because they're betting a lot on you, and they're betting a lot of, like, you got to think of it as a business, really. And if you're going to come in there and you're going to be like, for example, right now, you'd be $1 million product or $1 million something, you have to be good, not just on the field, but you also have to be good off the field, because anything that could possibly stop or prevent the team from winning that could happen off the field is ultimately a detriment to the team, no matter how good you are. So that's why that rule, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. You have to be good off the field. You have to make sure you're training. You have to keep your gardens, the term goes, keep your garden clean, meaning that you have good work ethic in everything you do. So if you really want to stand out, so say you have a guy that has really good athleticism, but is poor off the field, versus somebody that's a little bit less, that is good off the field and good on the field. This person that is good off the field and good on the field is probably going to beat out the person that has just a little bit more athleticism. And then ultimately, it's just dedicating to your craft each and every day to an obsessive nature that might make you feel a little bit awkward to your friends, because that's naturally what it's going to take, because there's so many other individuals that are doing the same exact thing. And so one thing I would say is make sure you stay with a group of friends that all have the same goal as you. And that's going to ultimately help you to get over those challenges that are going to inevitably be in your life as you're going through. So I hope that answers your question. Cry and improve. Thanks for Malachi Moore. Yes, I did know Malachi Moore. Yes, I did. So I am here to answer any more questions. By the way, this is my wife and I. This is a quantum computer in the background. My wife and I were looking at an IBM Q System 1, and that box that you see back where this box that you're seeing right here, that's 12 by 12 feet. And so I'm just going to keep talking so long as I see that there's like 30 people in the room. So I'm assuming that you guys are still watching and analyzing and listening. So I'll just keep talking. So this is the IBM Q System 1. This whole thing, this is a 12 by 12 foot. So you can see it's bigger. It takes up 2 floors, as you can see here. This is at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. It's in upstate New York. The actual quantum computer is in this silver dome right here. And this silver dome, the reason why they put it here, it's because they don't want anybody to look at how it's created. This glass building, this glass thing around its case, there's only 12 people on the east side of America that can get into this room. And then to get into the room, it's retina scan. So it's not like fingerprints, it's not a password, it's retina. And it's super secure because, one, it's a national security risk because IBM doesn't want this information leaking out outside of the country, because naturally you can use these computers to do a lot of things. And so this is really interesting. And then the next thing here is you see these cords right here. There's over $50,000 of helium being pumped into the system at any given time. Helium is to keep it really, really cold, because quantum computers have to stay close to absolute zero, like a couple degrees above absolute zero. Absolute zero is like when the actual molecules stop moving because it's so cold. It's about, I think, like something less than 200 and something Kelvin. Super, super cold. So this is what a quantum computer looks like, and it's definitely going to be the future. You can start interacting with them now. You can write code for them. If you're learning Python, you're going to be using Python often to write code and to interact with them. But think about it like this: if you want to be like the next big tech CEO, the key here is that there is no operating systems with them. There's no applications like when I said use Python to code with it, you're actually using Python to create the circuits that are on it. But there hasn't been anybody has created an operating system. So an operating system like Mac, Windows, Linux on them just yet. And so that's where you guys can be the future of this, because it's definitely going to be what you're going to have in your futures.